in eukaryotic cell?
Yes, ma'am.
So as I said just now, we are getting into the details of the general characteristics of fungi, which is a eukaryotic organism. Okay, can anybody tell me what do you mean by eukaryotic organism, or the difference between prokaryotic and eukaryotic organism? Yes, ma'am. Quickly.
They are multicellular
Which
and they
one?
have eukaryotes are multicellular
Okay.
and they are bound with membrane bound organelles are present.
Yes, that is an important feature. The eukaryotic organisms will be having the membrane-bound cell organelles when you compare with the prokaryotic organisms. So I'm not getting into details of the differences. I hope Smriti madam has completed that. So today we'll get into the details of general characteristics of fungi. Can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So here, when you look at the fungi, these are called as the eukaryotic organisms. As somebody just now said that eukaryotic organisms are nothing but which are having the membrane-bound cell organelles. And when you look at the nuclei of the fungi, they are typically haploid. Most of them haploid, but in few exceptions like yeast will be having the diploid nuclei. Again, what is meant by haploid and diploid? As you are genetic students, you need to answer this.
Two set
Single
of
set
chromosomes.
of
Okay, two set of chromosomes, if they are present in gametes, we are calling them as haploid or
Diploid
diploid? Diploid
nuclei.
nuclei. If one set has been there, we will be calling it as haploid. Okay, so most of the fungal cells are haploid in nature. Only few exceptions like yeast will be having the diploid nuclei. Now coming to the next feature of these fungi, they are achlorophyllous. So by the term itself, we can say that they doesn't have the chlorophyll, so they are incapable of carrying out the photosynthesis. They cannot produce its own food because they lack the chlorophyll pigments. Now coming to the next point, fungi are chemoheterotrophs. What do you mean by this, chemoheterotrophs? Yes?
They are dependent on other organisms for their food.
Yes, yes, very right. Okay. Yes. So they derive the energy by consuming or by absorbing the organic material from, especially if you look at the fungi, they absorb the organic material from the soil, which will be broken down into smaller components to derive the energy, or to form or to use those smaller molecules as the building blocks. Either they can derive the energy, or they can use those simpler forms of the organic material as a building block. So that is nothing but the chemoheterotrophs. And the next point, most of the fungi are multicellular. So exception is there. Again, yeast. Yeast are considered as unicellular. They are made up of only single cell. But most of the fungi are multicellular. They are made up of more than one cell. If you look at the body of the fungi, it is made up of hyphae and mycelium. Hyphae is nothing but an individual filament, whereas mycelium is nothing but the mass of the hyphae. We will get into the details of this in the next slide. Just remember that fungi is made up of hyphae as well as the mycelium. Now coming to the next point, in nature there are over a millions of species of fungi, but only 10% of known fungi species are found in the scientific literature. That means only 10% of fungal species have been discovered till now. So there is, still 90% of fungal species need to be explored. And there are over 300 species of fungi that are infectious to humans, and every year 85 billion tons of, this is the interesting point of the fungi, look at this point, each year 85 billion tons of carbon dioxide released into the air through decomposing the plants, which is done by the fungi. So that is the most ecological importance of these fungi. Now coming to the general characteristics of fungi, once again they are unicellular or Most of them are multicellular. Few exceptions have been there which are unicellular like yeast. They are made up of only single cell. So when you look at these multicellular body, as I said, they are filamentous like, which is made up of hyphae, and these hyphae show apical growth. That means at the tip they will grow and form the branches to produce a lot of hyphae network known as the mycelium. So single filament is known as the hyphae, whereas when these filament form the network like structure, we'll be calling it as mycelium. So always I'll be telling that you can observe the growth of the fungi on the surface of the agar medium as cottony growth, whereas bacterial growth, the bacterial colonies will be mucoid and sticky in nature, whereas fungal growth, you can see that the cottony growth on the surface of the agar medium or any other spoiled food also, you can see the growth as a cottony growth. So that indicates that the cottony growth is nothing but the mycelium network of the hyphae, which is known as the mycelium. Okay, and these hyphae can be modified, which are known as Haustoria. There are modified hyphae present in few fungi, which is known as Haustoria. So what is the importance of these Haustoria means they are involved in nutrient absorbing by penetrating into the host tissue. You can see it in the diagram here. Whatever it may be, Haustoria or any other normal vegetative body that is hyphae, this hyphae or the mycelium will be involved in the absorption of the nutrients. But why we are calling it as the modified hyphae here is these hyphae will be absorbing the nutrients from the soil, whereas this Haustoria is nothing but which will be present in the parasitic fungi. That means they will absorb the nutrients from the plant cell or the animal cell. So here you can see the plant cell, and this is a fungal hyphae which is penetrated into these cells to absorb the nutrients without getting inside the plant cell. Only that region has been penetrated into the plant cell. So the same thing has been indicated, but remain outside the host cell membrane. The whole structure didn't get into the plant cell. Right, ma'am? So the hyphae, they will be involved in the absorption of the nutrients from the soil, whereas coming to the parasitic fungi, they will absorb the nutrients from the host cell, that is plant cell or the animal cell. So these type of hyphae, we are calling it as Haustoria. Okay. Now coming to the basic structure of the hyphae, they can be of two types, aseptate or septate. Septate as well as aseptate, or aseptate you can call it as cenocytic hyphae. You can see it clearly in the diagram here. So the hyphae of the aseptate fungi will lack the cross walls. You can't see the cell have been divided into different types of compartments or anything like that. There is no cross wall between the cells. So these type of hyphae are known as cenocytic or aseptate hyphae. So these type of cenocytic or aseptate hyphae will be formed by repeated nuclear divisions, but not cell divisions. Only the nucleus will divide, but not the cells. Okay. When you compare with the septate hyphae, these will be divided, the cells will be divided into cross walls or dividing walls here, which are called as the septa, and inside this septa you can see some pores. So what is the importance of these pores? They will allow the organelles or other nutrients to move from one cell to the another cell. So if the cells have been divided with these specialized cross walls, we are calling these hyphae as the septate hyphae. Okay, so normally the hyphae is of two types, septate and aseptate hyphae. But in that also, the parasitic fungi will be having some modified hyphae which are known as Haustoria to absorb the nutrients from the host cell. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Once again, the same thing. So the vegetative body of the fungi, we will be calling it as thallus. So depending upon the thallus, we can group the fungi into two types, or we can divide them into two types, moles and the yeasts. The moles are multicellular, while the yeasts are unicellular organisms. So as I said, So the vegetative body of the fungi is made up of hyphae as well as the mycelium. The same thing has been indicated here. And depending upon, again, if you look at the mycelium, like hyphae, I said there are two types, septate and aseptate hyphae. So when you come in details of the mycelium, this mycelium also can be of two types, reproductive mycelium or vegetative mycelium. Reproductive mycelium is also known as aerial mycelium, which will grow towards the upward direction. That means it will be present on the surface of the agar medium. So mostly these aerial mycelium or reproductive mycelium contains the spores. Or in few cases, these aerial mycelium, instead of forming the spores, they will form the fruiting bodies. The good example here is mushrooms. So mushrooms are the fruiting bodies of the mycelium. Remember that. Now coming to the next type of the mycelium, that is vegetative mycelium, which penetrates into the medium, which will be helpful in the absorption of the nutrients. So mycelium, again, it is of two types, reproductive mycelium and vegetative mycelium. Reproductive means it will produce the spores. In few cases, it will produce the fruiting bodies, whereas vegetative mycelium, it will be helpful in the absorption of the nutrients. So you can see the diagram here. Okay, so here you can see some dots, black color dots like thing. So this black color, so all, overall this white color thing is nothing but the fungal growth. As I said, we can identify easily by looking at the cottony growth. Yes, it is not mucoid or sticky in nature. You can see the colony morphology as cottony growth, thread-like structure. So this is nothing but the fungal growth, especially Aspergillus niger. Okay, but coming to the mycelium here, so at the center you can see the black dots. So these are nothing but the spores. So as I said, the spores will be produced on what type of mycelium?
Aerial.
Aerial, or you can see it say it as reproductive mycelium. So these are considered as the aerial mycelium, whereas this is considered as the vegetative hyphae, which will helpful in the absorption of the nutrients. Now coming to the, so another type, as I said, on these reproductive hyphae, instead of forming the spores, they can form the fruiting bodies. So this is a mushroom, which is considered as a fruiting body, and this is a mycelium, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now coming to the ultrastructure, just look at the picture here. So this is the ultrastructure of the hyphae. So you can see this is the septate form of hyphae, where the cells have been divided into cross walls, and these are the pores, okay, which have been present in the septa. So here you can see each cell will be having the membrane bound cell organelles. And if you look at the growth of the hyphae, always it will grow at the tip of the hyphae, apical growth. This type of growth will be calling it as apical growth, where at the tip region the new cells will be formed and it will be helpful in the growing of the hyphae. Okay. Now coming to the, what is the importance of these septa? Why few hyphae are septate and few hyphae are aseptate? What is the importance of that cross wall which is formed in between the cells? So the first thing, they provide the structural support, that is the addition of plate-like cross walls to a long tube-like structure help to stabilize the hyphae. That is nothing but they are acting as the cytoskeleton. They give the strength, the structural support to the hyphae or the tube-like structure. The second function is they provide the first line of defense. So that means when a part of the hyphae is damaged, only that part will be damaged and the rest of the involved in the other functions. So these septa will be acting as the first line of the defense. Also, they are helpful in a movement of the nutrients or the other components from one cell to the another cell. So you can see it here. Septa can isolate adjacent compartments from another, so that different biochemical and physiological processes can occur within them. So each compartment will be different in their cell components and physiological processes. One compartment it will undergo some functions, in another compartment different metabolic activities will carry on. So these may result in differentiation of the hyphae into specialized structures, like especially when the spores are formed, few cells will be converted into spores, and few cells will be converted into vegetative type vegetative cells. Okay, so these are the main functions of the septa. Now coming to the cell wall of the hypha. So main important feature of the fungal is, so the bacterial cell wall is made up of peptidoglycan layer, that we know. But when you come to the fungi cell wall is made up of, the fungal cell wall is made chitin. So this chitin is a strong, flexible, nitrogen-containing polysaccharide. You need to remember this one. Chitin is nothing but the nitrogen-containing polysaccharide. You can see the structure of the chitin here. So these are the nitrogen compounds. Okay, it is a polysaccharide, but it contains the nitrogen group. So when you look at the different groups under fungi, whatever may be the group or division under the fungi, all are containing the chitin in their cell wall. The cell wall is made up of chitin. Apart from that, depending upon the division of the group, apart from chitin, you can see the other components like glucon, chitosan, and other different types of glucons have been there in the formation of the cell wall. But major component of the cell wall of the fungi is made up of chitin. That you need to remember. Now coming to, this is about the cell wall. Below the cell wall, plasma membrane will be present. So the cytoplasmic membrane is made up of ergosterol. This is also an important feature of the fungi. Can anybody tell me what is meant by ergosterol?
Don't know, ma'am.
Ergosterol, which is nothing similar to the cholesterol. In human cells, the cytoplasmic, the animal cell will be contained, the cytoplasmic membrane of the animal cell is made up of cholesterol. So that's why you can see the humans, a few will be obese in nature, and a few will be having they doesn't have any cholesterol, so they will be very thin in structure. So depending upon the content of the cholesterol, we can change into obese or non-obese human beings. But that not will happen in the case of the fungi as well as the bacterial cell, because they doesn't have any cholesterol in their cytoplasmic membrane. Instead of that, they will be having the ergosterol, which is similar to the cholesterol itself. So what is the importance of this ergosterol? Means they are helpful in the formation of the cytoplasmic membrane or the plasma membrane to maintain its fluidity. Okay, the main role is to maintain the fluidity of the cytoplasmic membrane. And one more important thing related to this ergosterol is that fungi cannot survive without this ergosterol in their membrane. So whatever the drug we are preparing, which is antifungal in nature, where we need to kill, we want to kill the organism, that is fungi, most of the drugs will be, mode of action will be there on this ergosterol. Okay, most of the antifungal agents, they will target this ergosterol. So if they damage the structure of the ergosterol, the cytoplasmic membrane fluidity will be disturbed, and there will be destruction of the plasma membrane, which leads to the death of that particular fungi. So most of the antifungal drugs, they will target this ergosterol. Okay. So apart from that, inside the cytoplasm of the fungi, they contain different types of storage compounds like glycogen, trehalose, sugar alcohols, and lipids. This is also an important component or the characteristic feature of the fungi. So the cell wall is made up of chitin, the cytoplasm membrane contains the ergosterol, whereas the cytoplasm, apart from membrane bound cell organelles, it also contains some different types of storage compounds. A repetition. So here you can see, if you look at the size of the fungi, it can be microscopic, macroscopic. But when you look at the bacteria, all are microscopic in nature, remember that. But when you look at the fungi, most of them are microscopic, but few are macroscopic. Few are microscopic means which can be observed with the microscope, where macroscopic without using the microscope we can observe these fungi. Okay, whereas coming to the cells, as I said, there may be unicellular, there may be multicellular. Unicellular means yeast which are microscopic in nature. So when you observe under the microscope, you can see the yeast cells like this budding budding cells, okay, which are microscopic in nature. Whereas multicellular means, as I said, they are made up of hyphae and mycelium, like this, rhizoids will be there, right? All these are microscopic in nature. But coming to the macroscopic form, where the good example is mushrooms. So mushrooms, we are not observing them under the microscope. We can easily see them by our eyes, right? So these fungi are called as the macroscopic in nature, right? So this is nothing but hyphae, network of the hyphae. And when you look at these fungi, depending upon the, how they acquire the nutrients, they have been divided into three types: saprophytic fungi, parasitic fungi, and mutualistic fungi. Broadly, we can divide these fungi into three types. So, depending upon the relationship with other organisms, or depending upon how they will be absorbing the nutrients. So, first one is the saprophytic fungi. So which absorbs the nutrients from dead organic matter. Most of the fungi are saprophytic fungi. So that's why the fungi are called as the good decomposers. So without presence of the fungi in the soil, the whole biomass or the dead organic matter would have been piled up. So due to the presence of this fungi, all the dead organic matter have been decomposed within few days, because these fungi has the ability of producing different kinds of enzymes which are involved in the decomposition of these dead organic matter. Okay, so the good examples are moles, penicillium, mushrooms. Also, you can see that as they are growing on the dead organic matter, mostly on the wood, wood logs, or on the cow dung. Also, you can see the formation of the mushrooms and other moles or any other fungal cultures. So they are mainly involved in the decomposition of the dead organic matter. So that means they are helpful in the nutrient cycling. So mostly they are helpful in the cycling of the nutrients. Now coming to the next category, that is parasitic fungi. So the name itself says that they are absorbing the nutrients from the other living hosts. So they are pathogenic in nature. Now coming to the, so pathogenic in nature means which will cause the infections. So the good example here is Candida albicans. Candida albicans is, you can put as an example under pathogenic fungi. Apart from Candida, Puccinia is also considered as the pathogenic fungi. Now coming to the another category, that is mutualistic fungi. So mutualistic means both the host as well as the the fungi will be benefited to each other. So they will absorb the nutrients from the host, but also the host also will get benefited. Can anyone tell me the example for this under this category? Mutualistic fungi? You know? Yes?
What, ma'am?
Mutualistic
Mutual
fungi.
understanding.
Mutualistic fungi example. Lichens? Can we go with the example of lichens and the mutualistic fungi?
Lichens.
Yes, ma'am.
So what is the lichens called as? Yeah, students. What are lichens? The association between the fungi and
Bacteria.
Algae.
fungi and
Algae.
yes, right. The association between fungi and algae is known as the lichens. And another example apart from the lichens, you can go with the mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza is nothing but association between the fungi and the plant roots. Okay, mycorrhiza is nothing but association between the fungi and the plant roots, where the fungi will absorb the nutrients which will required for the plant growth, and indirectly plant provide the shelter as well as the food for the fungi. So in that way they are mutualistic in nature, or they will be having a mutualistic relationship. So lichens and the mycorrhiza are the good examples under mutualistic fungi. Okay, so this is one category. And based upon the oxygen requirements, we can divide these fungi into molds, yeast, and anaerobic fungi. So molds, mostly they are aerobic in nature, which require oxygen for their growth, whereas yeast are aerobic as well as facultative. They can grow in absence of oxygen also. I mean, small concentration of oxygen should be there. So that's why they are called as facultative. Whereas anaerobic fungi that doesn't require any oxygen. So the good example here is these anaerobic fungi are present in the rumen of the cattle, which are helpful in the digestion of the cellulose inside the rumen of cattle. Okay. Now coming to the reproduction, fungi reproduce both sexually and asexually. Oftenly they produce spores, and so when these fungi will undergo the sexual reproduction and when they will undergo asexual reproduction means during favorable conditions, fungi generally produce enormous number of spores and they will reproduce asexually. When they are under stressful conditions, they will undergo the sexual reproduction. And as I said, most of the spores are haploid in condition, but in few sexual life cycles, you can see the cell will be in diploid stage, but fungal cells are haploid in nature. So when you look at the sexual reproduction, it undergoes by syngamy. So this syngamy is divided into two stages, which is plasmogamy and karyogamy. Plasmogamy is nothing but the fusion of the cytoplasm, whereas karyogamy is nothing but the fusion of the nuclei. So the same thing, mostly the fungi reproduce by sporulation, which is a sexual form of reproduction. So spores are of different types. The spores are generally formed directly on the hyphae, like you can see it in the diagram. This is an example of Penicillium hyphae. So on the tip of the hyphae, you can see the formation of the spores. Okay. So directly on the hyphae, the spores will form, or inside a sac-like thing, which is known as sporangium. Inside the sporangium, you can see the formation of the spores, which are known as sporangiospores. Or the spores itself will be formed into fruiting bodies. The examples are mushroom. Okay. Again, the spores, if you look at these asexual reproduction in the fungi, there are different types. So the first one, if you look at these diagram, this is considered as this transverse fission. So you can see the division of the cell by formation of the septa here, so which is known as the transverse fission. So this is one type of asexual reproduction which is carried out in the fungi. The second diagram is fragmentation. The hyphae has been splitted into small pieces, which is known as fragmentation. So whatever the resultant fragments are known as arthrospores. This is one type of asexual reproduction. The third one is chlamydospores. So intercalary, inside, in between the hyphae, you can see the formation of sac-like thing. Inside the sac, you can see the presence of the spores. So these are considered as the chlamydospores. Whereas in another type, you can see at the tip of the hyphae. This is intercalary. In between the hyphae, you can see the sac-like thing. Whereas in sporangium, you can see only at the tip of the hyphae there is a sac-like structure which is known as sporangium. Inside the sporangium, you can see the formation of the spores, sporangiospores. That is one type of reproduction. Whereas coming to the next one, so at the end of the tip of the hyphae, you can see the chains of spores have been arranged. So these are called as the conidio. Okay, so these are called as the conidiospores, and this is considered as the conidiophore. Whereas coming to the next one, which is called as the blastospores, where it will bud off from the parent cell. It will just cut out from here and it will regenerate into new form. So they will just bud off from the or cut off from the parent cell. So these are the different types of asexual reproduction you can see in the fungi. So the same thing. If you just go with the slide, no need to go with this slide. The same thing I had put it here, different types of fungal spores. Coming to the importance of the fungi, there are various n number of functions carried by these fungi. So just look into it. So these fungi can be involved in biodecomposition, biodeterioration, bioremediation, and biotransformation. We'll just get into the details. So apart from that, they are also used for food applications in production of different types of food materials, as well as industrial production of industrially important products, like different types of enzymes will be produced, organic acids, alcohols, and different types of antibiotics. So apart from that, they also plays an important role in the medical field, and they are also helpful in agriculture, horticulture, and as well as the forestry. And apart from that, harmful effects of these fungi, if you look at, they also cause majority of the plant diseases as well as the human infections. Now coming to the first important thing about the importance of these fungi, they are helpful in the decomposition. That means the decomposition is a process where the tissue of the dead organism are broken into smaller pieces. So this, so why it has to degrade this dead organic matter? Because it will be helpful in this nutrient cycling of the nutrients. So due to the production of different types of enzymes, these larger complex molecules will be converted into simpler form. So the most of the fungi which has been involved in the decomposition are called as the saprotrophic fungi, which will utilize the dead organic matter as a source of the nutrients, and by the production of different types of enzymes like cellulases, proteases, and lignases, they will decompose this dead organic matter. Okay, the best example is Basidiomycetes, which is called as the white rot fungi, which will produce the enzymes like lactase and phenol oxidase, which will be mainly involved in the lignin degradation. So lignin is a very hard material which will not be easily decomposed. So this can be done by the saprotrophic fungi. So you can see the cycle here. Organic matter will be converted into simpler forms, which is nothing but the humus formation. So this again will be done by the fungi. Again from the humans, the humus, the minerals will be absorbed by these fungi by the process known as mineralization. So here mineralization is nothing but the conversion of the organic matter into material, into carbon dioxide, water, and other inorganic material. So like this, the fungi will be helpful in the decomposition of the dead organic matter. Now coming to the another function of this one, they are also helpful in the fungal deterioration. That means deterioration means they are involved in the spoilage of that food material. So apart from the positive effects, we need to check out the negative effects of this fungi. So this is the negative effect of the fungi, which will be which were involved in the spoilage of the food material. So many saprotrophic fungi contaminate our food resources and destroy the consumer goods. So the most important one is the fungi are dangerous contaminants of the seeds and the grains. Not only the moist food materials, the dried food materials like seeds as well as the stored seeds and the grains are also get contaminated by these fungus. So during at that time they will produce the fungal toxins which are known as mycotoxins. This is the most negative effect of these fungi. Okay, so when we consume these mycotoxins, it may lead to the cancer. So we need to be very careful when we are consuming the seeds or the grains. You can see if there is a formation of green color spores or any cottony growth in that grains, you should avoid taking those grains. So ultimately it will lead to the production of the mycotoxins. Mostly it will be seen in the corn seeds as well as the what is that? Groundnut seeds. Okay, so when you look at the groundnuts, few groundnuts will be green in color or blackish in color. So those type of seeds should not be consumed. Okay, or these mycotoxins are also will be present in the red chili. Red chilies also. If you just split the red chili, inside that you can see some black coloration as well as the green coloration. Okay, so that is nothing but the fungal growth which may there is a possibility of the production of these mycotoxins. So that type of grains and the seed should be avoided, right? So when ingested, mycotoxins are toxic or carcinogenic to humans as well as the other animals. So this you need to remember now. Very, very important. Mycotoxins are carcinogenic in nature. Some species of Aspergillus produce a group of chemically related mycotoxins called aflatoxins. So these are another type of mycotoxins which are also carcinogenic in nature. So apart from spoilage of food materials, they can also destroy the artwork, any photographs or museum material or books. Most of the books, if they stored for longer period of time, they are easily attacked by these fungal species. Waterlogged wood of ships and building timber, mostly the wood material will be easily decomposed by these fungal species. So the good example is dry rot fungus, which is destroy the construction of the buildings if they have been built with the wood. Not only the termites, apart from the termites, this fungi also can destroy the wood. Okay, and another one is called a xerophilic fungi, which is dry loving fungi. Especially the fungi will grow in the area so where the moisture has been there. It requires very less amount of the moisture for their growth. But there is an exception which is known as xerophilic fungi, which can grow on dry conditions also. So that's why it is known as dry loving fungi, which will grow at very low water activities. Now coming to the food applications, so here I had just given two examples, that is mostly they are helpful in the brewing industry as well as bread making. So where the brewing is nothing but where the conversion of sugars into alcohol and the carbon dioxide, mostly done by the yeast cell. Yeast is also a fungi, okay, where the sugars will be converted into alcohol and carbon dioxide. Whereas coming to the bread making, carbon dioxide causes the dough to rise while the alcohol is driven off during the baking. So I think a few of them has been baked the bread at your home. So when you are baking the bread, or at least if you just go to your bakery or nearby to that, you can feel nice aroma will be coming during the baking of the bread. So why that aroma will be coming means due to the formation of this alcohol. Whatever the alcohol has been formed, it will get evaporated. So that alcohol, that alcohol smell will be very pleasant to us. So that's why you can see some peculiar smell will be coming during the baking of the bread due to the formation of the alcohol. As well as carbon dioxide also will be formed. Because of the formation of the carbon dioxide only, you can see that fluffy nature, spongy nature will be present in the bread or any other bakery items. So that holes or fluffy nature will be formed due to the formation of the carbon dioxide, and the aroma will be created due to the formation of the alcohol, which will get evaporated. Okay, so that's why you can smell when you bake any item. Okay. Now coming to another food applications, apart from that, the majority of the fungal species are involved in the cheese production. Example, Penicillium roqueforti, which imparts a strong and pungent flavor to cheese by producing methyl ketones. So by the production of methyl ketones, it gives strong and pungent flavor to the cheese, as well as the white crust on the outside of the cheese is because of the mycelium, which is known as Penicillium camembert. So depending upon what variety you want to produce this cheese, we need to select the fungal species. Okay, so there are different types of cheese. So depending upon what type of fungal culture you have been used, it differs from one type to another type of cheese. Whereas apart from the cheese production, you can see the fungus has been involved in the production of soya sauce. Example, Aspergillus oryza, where the soya beans will get fermented to produce the soya sauce. And the another example is sake, which is alcoholic drink, which is produced by the fermentation of the rice. So rice will be fermented by using this Aspergillus oryza to form the alcoholic drink, which is called as the sack. To another applications, so directly the mushrooms are considered as the overall food material which contains all carbohydrate, proteins, no cholesterol in that. So mushrooms can take up directly as a food materials. So no need to discuss in detail about the mushrooms. Everybody knows about that. Apart from that, nowadays you can see not in India, I think in foreign countries, there is especially the fusarium species are involved in the formation of the mycoprotein, where the filamentous nature of this biomass is responsible for the meat-like structure. So they are considering this mycoprotein, which is equal to the meat. So instead of killing the animals, they are producing that meat like food material by using this fusarium species, mostly in UK and other countries. From that, as I said, they are involved in the industrial production of industrially important products like citric acid. So before it was produced by from lemons, but after discovery of the fungi, they are using this Aspergillus niger for the production of high amount of citric acid. So where do we find the applications of the citric acid? They are helpful. They are found applications in the formation. I mean production of soda, soft drinks, candies, canned food, baked food. All these involves this citric acid which will be produced by the Aspergillus niger. Apart from that, they are also involved in the production of different types of enzymes. So you just get into this slide later on. Okay, they had given the importance of each enzymes which have been produced by these fungi. I'm not getting into the details now. So this is a list of the enzymes which have been produced by different types of fungi. Apart from that, they are also helpful in, as I said, they are also helpful in the medical field. So how they are, they are helpful in the production of the chitin as well as the chitosan. So this chitosan is mostly useful in wound healing process. So nowadays, most of the work is done on this chitosan, okay, which is helpful in the wound healing. Apart from that, we know that these fungi are especially the penicillin is a major producer of the antibiotic. Penicillium species are the major producers of the antibiotic known as penicillin. Apart from that, cephalosporin is also produced by the fungi which is known as cephalosporium. So this is cephalosporium. How it is different from the penicillin is it contains 6-membered ring, and it is stable to acid as well as beta-lactamase enzyme, whereas penicillin can be easily destroyed by this enzyme called as beta-lactamase, but this cephalosporin is resistant to this beta-lactamase. And both are, if you look at the mode of action, they will target the cell wall formation. So they will inhibit the cell wall formation so that it leads to the death of that particular bacteria. This is about the some more medicinal products from the fungi. So they are involved in different types of medically important products. Just go through the slide afterwards. The negative effects of the fungi are they are involved in production of different types of fungal infections, which are so you can see it here, different types of mycosis like superficial, cutaneous mycosis, subcutaneous mycosis, systemic mycosis, as well as opportunistic mycosis. So different types of infections will be caused by the fungal species. I think this. At least remember two examples under each category when you look at the importance of the fungi. No need to get into the details, at least two examples under each one. Like how it is helpful in the decomposition, how it is involved in the food spoilage, what are the industrially important products, 2 examples. And the negative effects, something like that. At least write down 2 examples under each category. Is it clear?